Picture someone who never leaves your thoughts. A person who appears without warning, sometimes in the middle of your day, sometimes during the quiet hours of night. Now let me pose a straightforward, yet unsettling question. If this individual were merely a construct of your imagination, why would they feel so undeniably real? Have you ever pondered this? What makes certain people come and go, while others become etched into your consciousness? Why do some names fade away, while certain faces refuse to disappear, no matter what you do? Is this merely coincidence, or is something far more profound happening beneath the surface? According to Carl Jung, the human consciousness doesn't randomly hold on to just anyone. Your subconscious doesn't carry what's irrelevant. Everything that remains in your awareness signals an incomplete connection somewhere. In other words, that person who occupies your thoughts isn't simply a memory, but rather a message. Yet here's where it becomes challenging. This connection doesn't always manifest clearly or reciprocally. Sometimes one person experiences it, while the other misses it entirely. Sometimes one wants to draw closer, while the other remains silent. And sometimes both sides feel it, yet both choose to deny its existence. Now consider this. Why did this individual appear in your life at this precise moment? Why not at a different time? Why not in another place? Why during this period when you're growing stronger, transforming, shedding old layers? Jung suggests that certain people who enter our lives function as mirrors. They arrive to teach us something, sometimes through affection, sometimes through pain, but never without purpose. The person you can't forget typically represents something within you that's awakening, but hasn't been confronted yet. A form of courage, a fear, a need, or a transformation. This is where most people make their mistake. They assume it's merely longing, merely habit, merely the past. No, if that were the case, it wouldn't penetrate so deeply. The past doesn't strain the mind this intensely, but the subconscious does strain it because it seeks resolution. Perhaps this person couldn't approach you. Perhaps you couldn't approach them. Perhaps circumstances, timing, ego, or fear intervened. But understand this. Incomplete connections make the loudest noise. Now I'm going to share something significant with you. At the end of this video, I'll reveal a single awareness. If you truly grasp it, you'll see with absolute clarity why this person hasn't left your mind. And then you'll realize where this mental connection is actually trying to guide you. But before we continue, you need to accept something. This isn't solely about them. This is equally about you. If there's someone you can't stop thinking about, write yes in the comments. Because according to Jung, the person who sticks in your consciousness is often your own soul's calling. Let's explore this more deeply now, because at this point, most people aren't honest with themselves. When thinking about someone who occupies your mind, you always place them at the center. But according to Jung, the real issue begins somewhere else. The person stuck in your thoughts often carries a need you've suppressed. Have you ever noticed this? Thoughts about this person typically arrive when you're alone, in silence, during moments when you don't want to speak with anyone, because the subconscious doesn't communicate in crowds. It waits for the moment when it catches you defenseless. Jung states that the human mind continuously presents unfinished experiences to you. Because there's no closure. A word hasn't been spoken, a step hasn't been taken, a feeling hasn't crystallized. And this is precisely why this person won't leave your thoughts. Because the story hasn't ended. But this story doesn't have to be happy or romantic. Sometimes the issue isn't about relationship, but about confrontation. Perhaps this person showed you something about yourself. Perhaps you felt more alive in their presence. Perhaps the person you were while talking with them was a side of yourself you normally keep hidden, and that side wants to be seen again. People often confuse this. Missing someone and missing the awakening of a feeling aren't the same thing. But the mind doesn't explain this difference clearly. It simply sends the signal. Why this person and not someone else? Why not someone who shows the same interest? Why not someone more accessible? Because according to Jung, the soul isn't drawn to what's easiest, but to what's most transformative. Not to what's comfortable, not to what's familiar, but to what will change you. And change always represents a threat to the ego. This is why you sometimes romanticize this connection, sometimes diminish it, sometimes ignore it entirely. But none of it works, because what's suppressed doesn't vanish. It simply operates from deeper levels. Now we're reaching a very important point. The person who occupies your thoughts might not always be someone who wants to come to you. Sometimes that person represents the direction you need to go, a courage, crossing a boundary, releasing an old pattern. And this is why this connection exhausts you, because it doesn't keep you in your comfort zone. It constantly creates a sense of unease, as if something's missing, as if something's been postponed. Jung says if you ignore your soul's calling for too long, that calling transforms into obsession. The mind constantly reminds you, through dreams, memories, emotions that arrive at unexpected moments. Perhaps you're not thinking about this person, but about the possibility they awakened in you. Perhaps you're not missing them, but the person you could be alongside them. And this is a crucial distinction, because without seeing this difference, this connection won't resolve. It neither continues with them nor completely ends. This is why the person who occupies your thoughts is a sign, like an invitation. But if you focus solely on that person, without understanding where they're inviting you, you miss the real message. And this is precisely where most people stop, because looking at yourself is harder than looking at someone else. Let's make this even clearer now, because at this point, the mind starts playing small games. The real issue regarding the person you can't forget isn't what they did. The real issue is what was set in motion within you. According to Jung, a person sees on someone else an aspect that's missing in themselves. And that person doesn't just stick in the mind. That person occupies the mind. Because the subconscious says this. There's something here you need to examine. Have you ever noticed this? Thoughts about this person sometimes intensify, sometimes disappear completely. Then they return at a moment you least expected, with a sentence, a song, a scent. This isn't coincidence. The mind spreads unresolved emotions across time, because it doesn't dare face them all at once. So it prepares you gradually, but you typically do this. You tell yourself you shouldn't think about this person. You keep yourself busy. You focus on other things. But Jung says conscious suppression doesn't work, because what's suppressed finds more indirect roots. This is why this person sometimes appears as longing, sometimes as restlessness, sometimes as meaningless emptiness. And here's a very critical detail. The person who occupies your thoughts isn't always someone coming toward you. Sometimes that person points to something preventing you from approaching yourself. A fear, a sense of worthlessness, an incompleteness. Perhaps the most difficult thing about this person is this. They don't ask anything of you, but they awaken something in you. And what awakens is too real to ignore. People usually handle clear connections easily, but ambiguous connections work on a person from within, because ambiguity is territory the mind dislikes. There's no clarity, no conclusion, but there is feeling. According to Jung, the soul sometimes deliberately chooses ambiguity, because quick solutions don't bring transformation, prolonged processes do. So if thoughts about this person make you impatient, this isn't coincidence. Impatience signals that you're crossing a threshold, but also that you don't yet know which direction you're crossing toward. Perhaps this person won't enter your life. Perhaps there will never be an open conversation. But this connection remains significant, because it has moved you away from your old self. And this is exactly where people make their error. What matters isn't the person themselves. What matters is what they disrupted in you, which order they shook, which questions they forced you to ask. Jung says the relationships that affect a person most are those explained least. If you're ready to face yourself, write "mirror" in the comments. Because meaning isn't formed through words, but through experience. This is why the person occupying your thoughts isn't a destination. They're a mirror, and looking in a mirror is always uncomfortable. But ignoring it doesn't make it disappear. On the contrary, the mirror begins to show things more clearly. Let's go deeper now, because at this stage, most people tell themselves incorrect stories. The biggest misconception about this person you can't forget is this: assuming they think about you as much as you think about them. Yet the situation is often far more complex. According to Jung, the subconscious doesn't operate in straight lines. When the mind stays fixated on a person, this doesn't always signify longing. Sometimes it's the continuation of an incomplete internal process, meaning the issue isn't that person, it's the journey they initiated within you. Notice this. Thoughts about this person typically emerge when you're alone. Not when you're in crowds, not when you're busy, but in silence. Because in silence, defenses fall. And right here, something important happens in the subconscious. The mind asks this: why exactly won't this person leave my thoughts? The answer is usually sought externally, but the answer lies within. Jung says, sometimes a person doesn't connect to someone else, but to their own potential. That person represents a possibility within you that hasn't been lived yet. A courage, a choice possibility, a different version of self. This is why thoughts about this person sometimes feel like hope, sometimes like restlessness, sometimes like meaningless weight, because the mind hasn't decided yet. Approach or distance. The human mind doesn't like unclear connections, but the soul feeds on exactly these connections, because clarity stops learning, ambiguity creates awareness. Perhaps this person never gave you anything concrete, no clear words, no open steps, but despite this, they left a mark on you, and things that leave marks don't erase easily. According to Jung, a person doesn't remember the one who affected them most, but the one who changed them most. This is why some people enter our lives briefly, but remain in our minds for a long time. When thinking about this person, do you ever feel this? As if something wasn't completed, as if a sentence was left half-spoken, as if a door didn't fully close. These feelings aren't about what the other side did. This is a cycle waiting to close within you, and cycles don't close by being ignored. A person sometimes thinks this: if enough time passes, everything will end by itself. But Jung disagrees. According to him, time only makes suppression easier, not resolution. So if thoughts about this person keep returning, this isn't a mistake. This is the mind's attempt to tell you something. If you're beginning to notice these signals, write "I'm aware" in the comments. Perhaps this person won't choose you, perhaps you won't choose them, but this connection remains meaningful, because it hasn't left you as the same person. And here's an important threshold at this point. Either you suppress these thoughts and repeat the same cycle, or you stop and ask this: what did this person awaken in me? The answer is more valuable than you think. Now we're reaching the most delicate point, because here, most people stop being honest with themselves. The real issue regarding this person you can't forget is no longer what they did. The real issue is what changed within you. According to Jung, when a person connects with someone, they're actually making contact not with them, but with their own unknown side. This is why some connections can't be explained with logic. You're drawn without knowing why. You wait without knowing why. You can't let go without knowing why. Thoughts about this person sometimes come very clearly, sometimes completely foggy. One day, everything seems very meaningful. The next day, you feel like it was pointless. Don't these fluctuations exhaust you? But notice this. This exhaustion doesn't come from love. This exhaustion comes from indecision. It emerges when your mind is pulled one direction and your heart another. Jung says, a person becomes most depleted when caught between two things: going and staying, hoping and giving up, understanding and ignoring. If thoughts about this person still catch you, there's a reason, because the connection hasn't completely resolved. But this doesn't necessarily mean it should continue. This is the point where people make their biggest mistake. An unfinished connection doesn't mean it's the right one. Sometimes a connection comes just to teach you something, and when the lesson isn't learned, it remains. What did this person teach you? Your boundaries? Patience? Not putting yourself second? Or your own worth? If the answers to these questions aren't clear, your mind won't release this person. Because the subconscious doesn't like incomplete lessons. It places them before you repeatedly. Perhaps this person never chose you. Perhaps you never truly chose them either. But that possibility in between was enough to occupy your mind. According to Jung, people hold on to unrealized possibilities more than realized ones. Because possibilities feed on imagination, and imagination is far more powerful than reality. This is why you sometimes feel this. If a step had been taken, everything would be different. If there had been a bit more courage, if the timing had been different. But timing is also a person's choice, and unchosen things leave traces behind. Now let me say something very clearly. If this person won't leave your mind, this doesn't necessarily mean they'll return. But it does mean you can no longer remain in the same place, because this connection changed you without your awareness, your perspective, your expectations, your boundaries. And according to Jung, true transformation happens not outside, but inside. A person sometimes can't reach someone, but reaches themselves. If thoughts about this person still come, ask yourself this: what did I learn from this connection, and what am I now ready for? The answer will determine far more than you think. We're at the clearest point now. Because if you've listened this far, it's not just out of curiosity. Something stirred inside you. A sentence touched you. Somewhere you paused and said, quote 1. According to Jung, when a person truly understands a connection, they can no longer return to their old state. Either they consciously repeat the same cycle, or they move to a completely different level. Now notice this. The story about this person isn't only about them. This story is about your sense of worth, about how you allow yourself to be loved, about why you've normalized waiting. If someone truly values you, they show it not only with words, but with direction. The mind can be uncertain, but direction isn't uncertain. A person doesn't continuously return to a place they don't want to go, doesn't keep someone in their mind this much that they don't want. But there's a critical distinction here. Someone thinking about you doesn't mean you should stay there. Sometimes someone misses you, sometimes they regret, sometimes they realize they lost you. But this realization doesn't require you to put your life on hold. Jung says a person makes their biggest mistake here. They connect to someone's potential, not their reality. Throughout this video, if you noticed, we kept returning to this: connection, conflict, subconscious, choice. Now at this point, the choice is yours. Will you continue asking the same questions, or will you now choose a new stance for yourself? Remember, forming a connection might be destiny, but staying there isn't always destiny. It's a choice. If you're determined to choose your own path, write "choice" in the comments.